Welcome to the road to 1 million US dollars. Let's get right into the Bitcoin chart for today, starting on the 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin, because earlier today we saw a bounce from the bottom of this descending channel that Bitcoin has been consolidating in for a couple of weeks at this point. And I wanted to start off with this today because yesterday I was basically talking about how I use the Bitcoin liquidation heat maps to look for possible entries on a trade. So what we saw here earlier today was we liquidated about $400 million worth of long positions here at about 93.9K. And from there, we actually started bouncing to the upside a little bit. Now, what I think will happen next, I will get to in just a second here. But earlier today, I actually took a long position on that exact bounce. I got about a 39% profit on that trade. And I simply wanted to share this as an example of how to actually use these Bitcoin liquidation heat maps. Now, coming back to this 2-hour time frame, currently Bitcoin is still in this downtrend, although we are seeing a pretty strong bounce from the bottom of this range. Coming to this 4-hour time frame, you actually see a similar story. This is also just still in a downtrend. So at the very least, if you're looking for another move to the top of this range, do expect there to be some resistance along this descending trend line. Currently, this level of resistance is sitting at about 96.2K. But either way, so long as we keep trading in this range here, we can simply go to the bottom of this range and we can go to the top of this range as well, without much actually changing about the situation that we are currently in. Now, the top of this range is sitting at about 97.2K, and the bottom of this range is sitting at about 93.7K. More broadly speaking, on this 4-hour time frame, we are also still in this broader downtrend. So for now, I think potentially we could see a bit more choppy sideways price action, potentially even some bearish momentum. But I do think once we start breaking this descending line of resistance, potentially we can start looking for the next bigger move to the upside for Bitcoin. We can finally leave this choppy sideways range that we have been in for quite a long time at this point. Besides that, if we take a look at the bigger support and resistance levels for Bitcoin, currently we're trading inside this big level of support sitting from about 96.2K all the way down to 95,000. And if we were to lose this as a level of support, again, likely we would be falling into this next level of support below that, sitting from 92K all the way down to 90,000 US dollars. As far as resistance to the upside goes, we have some resistance to the upside at 97.5K. And you may have noticed this big orange box here named Liquidity sitting between this 88 and 86K level, which is exactly what we see right here. So notice how we have about $17 billion worth of long positions that would get liquidated if we reach this 88,000 US dollar level. And yes, there's even $16 billion worth of liquidity as low as about 86.3K. So potentially, if we start losing some critical levels of support, we could be seeing the Bitcoin price coming down to actually take out all of this liquidity. Although personally, I do not think that that necessarily needs to be the end of the bull run. In fact, if we really start crashing to the downside now, take out all of that downside liquidity, potentially we could even be seeing something like we saw here earlier today on that 2-hour time frame, where you get the big dump down, the big wick, and from there actually seeing a strong bounce. So that is something that I'm keeping an eye on in the next couple weeks here. Not necessarily a call or prediction that we need to get something like this, although I do think it is completely on the table, because if there's anything I have learned from trading for a long time using this Bitcoin liquidation heat map, it is that typically the Bitcoin price gets attracted to where there is the most liquidity on this chart. And currently we are in this downtrend with big liquidity to the downside just below that level of support. So therefore, it would not surprise me if we end up taking that out at some point. Although, of course, we should not forget about the massive liquidity to the upside as well, sitting, for example, at 107.6K, and even over $10 billion sitting at 110,000 in the Bitcoin price. So guys, if this thing actually turns around at some point, I think we are going to see some violent bullish momentum for Bitcoin, although of course we do first need to find a low, so be aware of that. Either way, this has been today's market update. Thank you very much for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.